I'd like to start with a quick show of hands, just because it really helps me and usually the audience as well. Can you tell me how many are actually thinking to start the startup here? Got about half. And how many are actually already working in a startup? Cross check how many are just passing by. Okay, fair enough. So I'd like to, if I understand what you'd like to understand, is a little bit about how to create a sort of startup today, what the opportunities are. Right. Is there anything else you'd like me to cover tonight? Any idea at the beginning before I start? Any burning question before? Yeah. Right. So let's get into it. A little bit about me. I was a CPO and co-founder for Genetic Interactive when I was still studying in France. I sold my shares when I completed my degree and joined Accenture, where I spent 6 years, a couple more than David. It took me a bit more to realize how. But eventually I decided I wanted to go back to the technology side, so I did my MBA in Cambridge, a couple of stints for Google and Cisco, and then found James, who were looking for a technical co-founder for IdeaPlane. And the journey starts on a time machine, jumping back a couple of years in 2011. For the purpose, I'm going to be James' fabricant, which was the CEO and founder of IdeaPlane, which also means I'm going to get as a bonus a nice pair of blonde spiky hair. That always helps. And we jump back to March 2011. And this was a slide that we were pitching out, and we were saying, look, so I'm James, right? I'm saying I worked for 5 years in MySpace, and 2005 was all about explaining to people what social media really was. And social media has already been around for years, but there was no actual understanding of what it could have been. And MySpace was the first social network to be actually successful. There's just many before that, and did a very successful international rollout, and then lost a big pot at the end in the competitive race with Facebook, as is now history. And he was saying, well, I can completely see that now it's the same thing, only that it's going to apply to enterprise. So you want to join now, because this is where a lot of the trend will be created. So this is what the opportunity is. We were also saying it's a market that Gartner, whoever worked at Accenture used Gartner at some point, and it's one of our deficiencies. We're estimating 1.3 billion market by 2014, and that's a time machine in 2011. Fast forward 2 years, that market is now 6 billion in 2016. Wow. So where do we start? Now, I want to talk a little bit first about IdeaPlane, and then I have a bonus slide at the end if I got the time to talk a little bit about ideas I could have. In IdeaPlane, I want to tell you really what I wish I knew when I started. And by the way, I was a consultant as well, so a lot of those things I didn't know myself. The first good read is Jim Collins' For Good to Great. It's a great piece for whoever wants to raise a company. The idea is to get the right people on the bus before anything else. And that's really crucial. So I'm happy that you mentioned the technical co-founders, because James had a fantastic background. He in social media, 5 years as one of the first international hire for MySpace. You can't get more credentialized than that. Fantastic business development skills, a superb personal network, and a background in law. Now, what do you need? Now, he was looking for someone with a background in technology, operation, consulting, and financial services. And that's where, when I met him and he mentioned IdeaPlane, I said, I'm not sure if it's going to work or not, but I can't just let the opportunity go. It just clicked, right? And you need to answer your question before. I think that if you're good in the business side, but you're not on the technology side, I wouldn't just hire a consultant. I would actually look for a technical co-founder or somebody that can really supplement you, that dies the idea and can do the journey with you, because that's really what you need at the beginning. Co-founder, first employee, three founders, doesn't really matter as long as you get the first team really, really right. And then it's a matter of scaling, and the biggest problem is scaling the company is finding the great people to join. And crucial learning is don't compromise. Like every time you compromise, we fail. Now the point is, you really want to scale your business, and you got an opening, and you're already working until 10 p.m. every night, so you can't really work hard. Well, you can for a little bit, but it doesn't really scale. So you need somebody to take away the marketing from you. And you got a guy that is, okay. No. Right? The answer is, you can't compromise on this one, because if you do, it won't work. So you will find the right guy, you will hire the okay guy, you will work with him for a month or two, he will leave pissed off because he's not really working the position that you want, and you will take 1 more month to actually find the right guy. So don't do it. Don't compromise on that one. Wait until you actually find the right guy. You can work until midnight for a couple of weeks more until you actually find the right guy. So we scaled from 1 to 10, and then we changed offices, and it took us 1 more year to actually get to 20. And 2 years all in all to do the journey and to actually find 20 people that would really look solid. Second thing is start somewhere blue. This is another strategy piece that is a classic in business school. Is blue ocean, red ocean. Is key men, I never remember her name, Marberg, something like this, a French name. Apologies for her for not getting it right. The point is really that most of the players in a market tend to stick into that crowded square where everybody is, because you don't really think where to go, but you just want to copy everybody else. So everybody now just jumps into that space, and then the big sharks have a fantastic game of eating the small fishes, and the fish is all red with blood. And the smart thing to do if you're a small fish is find the blue ocean. Find a place where nobody is because nobody has contested it yet. And sometimes it will be not as obvious. So if you want to create a company now, keep in mind that in the social space, this is what the market looks like. It's already pretty red. So you don't want to just create a company and dive into the market. You first of all want to know the market well and know, sorry, marketing forced me to put us on the spot. You got to know that market well, because you got to know who your competitor are and what's the already red spots. And then look, this is the slide we saw before. The lens down here points at alumni. Now why the hell alumni? Because when James wanted to start a business, he said he did the research, he had a social media background, and then he looked at what are the big enterprise problems that are not really solved now. So he looked at the alumni network and found out that in the financial services space, there were only 3 players with an alumni network: Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and JP Morgan. It's a good start. But none of the other big players actually have done it and went in. Most importantly, Morgan Stanley built it custom, and Goldman Sachs actually bought a solution called, oh my God, what's the name? Select Minds, which is the standard de facto for alumni networks. Accenture, by the way, does Select Minds as well. So we used my Accenture to actually spec and see how it was working out. The point is that Select Minds is okay, but it's Enterprise 1.0 website that nobody really uses. So summarizing, a need that is validated by the biggest players in the market, not really contested by anyone, where you can apply the social media and, citing Larry, make it 10 times better. Whatever idea you have, it cannot be improving something by 20% because it just doesn't work. You will get 30% wrong somewhere else, or somebody else will do it 40% better. So you've got to get an idea that actually makes it 10 times better. Then you can start. So James looked at the market and said, alumni network is the financial services space. Financial services is what, 20% of the world market? It's big enough, yes. None of them actually has the solution they want. There is a validated demand. Can I make it 10 times better? Yes. Tick. And so we started. And which leads me to the third point, sell it before you build it. Now, I will be quoting Gary Crease a couple of times because it's been really a book that changed my life, and I wish I read before starting. Whoever wants to start a startup, please read that book before you do anything else. So, sell it before you build it. So he went to Deutsche Bank and he pitched the idea. And he said, well, it'll be cool if you actually build an enterprise social networking solution for alumni for you from the ground up with my expertise. I know how to do it. And you've got the customer base, but it's going to be completely revolutionary. And Deutsche Bank said yes. So we built it. And this is how it looks like today, sometime down the line. So it's a little bit like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter meshed up, and commenting, picture preview group, which you can connect your LinkedIn profile and a whole set of things that 2 years and a half after that looks obvious. But we started from alumni network. So it doesn't really matter where you start as long as it's blue. And you find some customers that actually wants to buy. Those are really the 2 preconditions. Last 2 points on lessons learned is choose the right investors. Can't really stress this enough. Everybody says it, really. It's not just about the money, but trust me, it's not really just about the money. It's really not. So, with the moment that you want to start and prioritize and you find people that are actually interested, of course you want the money desperately before anything else. But of course, if you got 2 guys that I was really I was a member of James doing the ride. Two guys like Claire that has been the CEO of 3 companies selling financial services, technology into financial services before, kind of handy when that's basically your core business. And Kevin Hirsch, that was the MD of International for LinkedIn, so the guy that basically started LinkedIn in Europe, up all the way through the IPO. Kind of you can drop them into the slide, and when you go pitching or recruiting or making a slide, they drop, it's unbelievable. So they give you money, they invest in your business, they give you money, they come to your pitches, they advertise a company, and you can use their name. I mean, that's what you want from an investor, right? Of course money is great, but that's much, much better. So that's another, for me it's a core ingredient of the success when you want to ramp up. That's a slide also, when you're in the second year, this is numbers to Kevin, this is one of the things that he introduced. So when you want to scale from 10 to 20, you can't micromanage anymore. So you got to start switching into setting values, culture, and operating priorities, and then letting the people go. And that only works if we did step 1 right, which is you got the right people that don't need to be micromanaged, because otherwise the whole thing falls. So you get the right people, and then you tell them what to do, and then you let them run, and you facilitate their process. The last but not least, so the pivot, Eric Ries for me is sort of a myth, because he took Steve Blank, like 4 Steps to Epiphany, and came back and were the extreme agile programming and Toyota, of course, and he just blended the 3 together in a circle. And that is fantastic. That is so obvious. Like all these ideas have been around for years, but he's been the one that really crystallized in a way that was for grabs. So that's what, to explain it, that's what IdeaPlane did. So we sold we got the first 2 consulting clients until December 2011, and we were doing okay. But we were, you know what, profitable. For a startup, it's fantastic. But we were a consulting business because we got 2 clients, and we had an on-premise solution. So the clients were running the business on-premise. Now you quickly realize that if your objective is changing the world, this does not scale. So we did a pivot. At the time we just changed the business model, but you can say we did a pivot. And we switched to a product company. So we got investments in, and we said we're going to stop just supplying those 2 massive customers that are really crushing us and not letting us do what we would like to do. It's fantastic to have a big customer, but you know, it's a big affair. You got to choose. It's a dilemma every time. They always want you. You're a small guy, so you want to do what they want. If you really want to hit the big part, you actually at some point need to pivot, to step away from that and go your own way. So raise the money and launch it as a product company, but it was still on premise. It took us another year to get to the point. Kevin was screaming at me all the time. You got to be in the cloud, because this is the way that everything is gonna work. I can agree with David Moore on that one. So we pivoted on the cloud, and that led us in a month to go from 2 clients to 10. Because the moment that the business is easy to try and is easy to get, it's just completely game changing. So we started getting much smaller clients, by the way. So you don't sell 10 investment banks in a month. That's not going to happen. But you kind of prove that your business works so much faster. So that was September 2012. November 2012, WorkShare acquires IdeaPlane. That's 5 pieces of wisdom that I'd like to give, because those are the 5 things that if somebody told me when I wanted to start a startup, I would have thanked him very much. I've got 5 minutes more.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yes. So on the bonus section, I tried to do an effort, because Josh really was pressurizing me on what opportunities are out there on the market. Now, my problem is that I'm a technical co-founder, so I'm the fast follower, not the leader. So David is a guy that has done a fantastic job at looking at the trends already. And is much better at this. But what I can do is I can offer a little bit of advisory of how I would look at the opportunities out in the market. So a couple of points. One is differentiate if you want to stay on the consumer side. So you take your client, whatever the client is, and you bring him to social media. That works fantastic. They call it social media marketing. So you create a Facebook page for Deutsche Bank, or you create a Twitter feed to keep everybody updated on the business. That works fantastically, right? And I did the other half. I was working on the other side, so doing exactly the opposite. I was extracting the best practices from the consumer side and taking them into the client. And they both work. Just keep in mind that you got to be clear on which side you own. I won't say anything on enterprise trends because I think we cover really everything. I agree totally on consumerization, cloud, mobile, and bring your own device. For me, are a big trend, because in enterprise, in B2B, I haven't seen anybody really cracking it. And in London we got Halo, we got Yplan, we've got great mobile-first companies in the consumer side, but I haven't seen, me personally, I haven't really seen anybody doing cracking that bring your own device for the enterprise side. So if I had my money, I would look into that. That's relatively blue. Social media for me is really about three things. Structured conversation is nothing but email was invented in 1965. So I'm coming tonight for dinner, okay? An email looks like this. Like on any social network looks like this. So the point is that the content is actually structure. It's not just about delivering content, but it's about taking away all the necessary information and adding the key metadata that you want. A link on the person, when you talk, its picture, and just the context. It's just much more efficient. And obviously it's also threaded. The social graph is just, you know, it's the people that you know and you work with, and the interest graph is the thing that you like, the thing that you're actually looking at. The two combined is nothing but a filter of content. So the problem that you're solving is there's plenty of information out there. In fact, there is an information overload problem. How do I build a social graph and an interest graph? How do I make my user build a social graph and an interest graph? And then how I deliver value by using that social graph and interest graph to filter the content, the structured conversation that he's having. Right? That's the basic. That's a fantastic slide that at VP of Product did a couple of years ago. It's still up to date. So he's saying this bi-directional graph like Facebook friends, this asymmetrical one like Twitter where you actually follow a person, this interest graph like Quora where you actually follow a topic. Then there's microblogging, then there's location-based, the Foursquare is now near the location-based part. There's real-time communication, gaming thing, and everything else. There's plenty of more graphs that create, but you can see that is the same thing applied over and over. You create a network of something and then put structured content onto that network. Examples. So on the communication side, as Twitter is already applied, so it doesn't really work, but Gmail, in the enterprise side is Google Apps. I love him mentioning BVA. It's happening. They start using Google Apps in the enterprise space. But you know that the enterprise have that fear. Now Google is a consumer market. I can't really do that. So there is space for somebody actually making it, delivering it in a better way. Microsoft is trying big time now with 365. WhatsApp, that's one of my favorites. So I love WhatsApp, and now Ed is our VP of Product loves Facebook groups. He's saying that's actually even better. I suspect that he's biased because he just bolts into Facebook a lot. But they both work really well on mobile. Can we just apply that to the enterprise? Who's got a good idea for doing that? There must be someone with a good idea for delivering value on that. Facebook groups are applied by Yarmajive works well. We did it obviously on IdeaPlane. Facebook events are kind of done, but Dropbox is another one where WorkShare, for example, is investing a lot. Box is another established player on the market, so there is an opportunity there. It's kind of already taken, so I would mark it yellow. Task management, so Asana, for example, Trello, they're fantastic on the consumer space. What's task management in the enterprise space? Outlook, SharePoint. Can we do better than that? And so on. Right? Quora is another one that we've been looking for 2 years now to apply Quora into the enterprise space and the whole knowledge management and the whole knowledge management process. So you can build a list of this endless. Just go on any social media site, make a list, think about what you like to do, think about it apply to the enterprise, and think whether you can make it 10 times better. Now, shameless self-promotion, that's really all I wanted to say today. We're actually hiring, so if you know any good product scientist or you're interested to work for us or on the engineering DevOps side, I'm here for grabs. You can grab me afterwards, and I will throw it up to the crowd for questions.
What about pricing? What things would you like to know about pricing?
Pricing just it's a topic. It's an excellent topic. I've studied a lot and I understood nothing. The real point is there's two ways to do pricing historically. That's just marketing. There's cost plus that always works, but it's typically never the best idea to do. And then there's a real thing that is bloody hard. That is, you go to your customer and you ask him, "Hey, would you pay $100 for this?" And your customer goes, "Nah." Next customer, "Hey, would you pay $50 for this?" And you try and iterate. You got to understand how much is the value. A lot of this is also the positioning. So what is the problem you're solving, and how much is it worth to the customer? How much is the competition charging if there is a competition? And understand that pretty well. Then there's endless books on. You can price below competition, above competition, if you want to differentiate. But that's nitty-gritty. So for IdeaPlane, we looked at, there was already, when we started, there was already Yammer. It was fantastic because the pricing were completely different. So for example, Chatter was an add-on to Salesforce, but was actually 10 times more expensive than Yammer. And we were looking at the product, we were saying, why? That actually, Yammer is actually better. And so we're doing the pricing for us, and we say, so what do we price us? Do we price us as a premium because we say, hey, we built it for Deutsche Bank, we built it to the best out in the world, or we actually undercut them because what we really want to get is engagement. And we went somewhere in the middle, built the whole pricing model, and ultimately it's trial and error. I'm afraid there's no better answer than that. I'm happy to share more afterwards. I can show you the model that we built and everything, if that helps.
Can I ask you about...
Sorry, there was a guy there.
Go ahead, George.
Can I ask you about adoption, because you guys do the social enterprise software, and adoption would be the key and also challenges for a company like yours. And how do you do that well? How do you deal with that?
Two core things. One is you got to know the inequality principle. Like that's a standard in social media. So just briefly, basically in any big, it's not just social media actually. It's just participation in any public event. Normally you got one guy that talks, 2 or 3 that ask questions, and the other to listen. Like, and by the law of big numbers, if you got any event that is big enough, the same principle applies. They call it the 1990 principle. So define what success is for you. So don't expect that if you launch a product like this in a company of 50 employees, you're going to have 40 people commenting, because it's not going to happen. It's just not against the human being. So then know very clearly what your business objective is. So why would you like to launch such a network in the company exactly? So we've got our ideas, but why do you want to launch it? So are you trying to enable cross-silo communication? That's a big classic. Are you trying to reduce the volume of email? I hate that, but a lot of people ask for it, so you're going to use it. And all those problems that your clients are going to ask you for, and then launch it on a small customer segment. Track it in terms of, we track 4 things. We track users that register, connect the SH number. If you're familiar with SH number, it's a very useful concept to understand whether your network is actually connected enough to start putting content into it. Then push content so that everybody understands how it's supposed to be used, and then wait for them to actually start contributing and putting content. And this is what we call the 4 steps to adoption, and that's the way that we actually track it. So after you launch it, adopt, and then there's a churn part. You got to monitor as well that the users that come in don't actually leave. So we define a churn user as somebody that hasn't really logged in or posted something for the last 10 days, and just endless books and topics on the method. Those are the 4 guiding principles that we use.
You mentioned when you were talking about founders, technical co-founders, and I guess more business-minded entrepreneurial.
Sorry, I can hear you.
Sorry, when you were talking earlier about co-founders, and
yep.
You know, the technical, again, reflecting on what was said earlier, the technical co-founder and the kind of more business side marketeer co-founder. In situations where you know, people have a more generalist and a kind of they're semi-technical but probably not technical enough to go all the way in doing something, and they've got the business acumen but they aren't necessarily the chief of marketing for the UK or whatever. What do you think people should do in that kind of situation if they want to be involved in the startup?
Look, if you actually looked at my profile, the only reason why I call myself a technical co-founder is because I started computer engineering, so I actually understand that. But I developed code for about 2 years in my life. And then Accenture is not the best coding school out there. I did write code for Accenture, by the way, I actually did. But if you really want to write code, that's not necessarily the good idea. So it's a management school, and actually that I like. They gave me a lot of the right tools, but the MBA also doesn't teach you to write good code. So it's really about what you mean by technical co-founder. Really, you want to find that makes that click. So you got to know what you can cover and what's a complement that you have, if it makes sense. And if so, you're in that case would be are you the one with the idea or the one John? Because that makes a big deal. If you're the James, the one with the idea, then you should know what it takes broadly to get your idea built. So is it the technology, social media startup that it takes? It pretty much takes a social media person and technology. So you know you're gonna look for. But this doesn't apply to all contexts. There are startups that don't have technology at all, that are just services. And then probably marketing co-founder is much more valuable than like a sales. Typically, the other profile is a salesperson, right? Because the commercial co-founder is incredibly valuable because you can build a fantastic product, with the best social media culture out there, but if you don't sell it, it doesn't really work much. So don't necessarily stuck with the classic model. You got to know what you cover well, and you got to know what you expect your party to cover, partner or partners. Sorry, I'll come to him afterwards because the third time I ignore.
It's just related. Your views on outsourcing and stuff. So this is all about having more agile teams, but most startups seem to want to hoard people, all the best people themselves.
So when I joined James, he actually started building the product already, and he outsourced the build to an agency, and it was nearshore. It was actually in London. And what I told him, look, it's really up to you, but I'll tell you it this way. Accenture outsourced everything to India. Google hires in Mountain View. Who do you want to be? So we insourced everything. We are developers here. Now, does it mean that outsourcing is a bad idea? No, not necessarily. It depends also how core the technology is to your business. So in our case, the technology and the IP behind it was what we wanted to sell, and ultimately what we sold to WorkShare. So it's not necessarily a good idea to keep your core asset outsourced, if this makes sense. But if really what you're doing is a marketing company and you need to plug together Twitter, DataSift, and a YouTube channel, then maybe you can outsource that. That may make sense perfectly. Does this make sense?
Last question?
Why did WorkShare acquire IdeaPlane? What was the main reason, the compelling reason why they were attracted to acquire IdeaPlane?
Fantastic question. So I didn't want to talk here because I wasn't representing WorkShare, but I can talk it on the IdeaPlane side. So it goes like this. We were WorkShare, if you know a little bit the story of WorkShare, it goes like this. Barry Hadfield is the CTO and founder of WorkShare and the CTO and founder of SkyDocs. So at some point he left WorkShare and he founded SkyDocs. Now WorkShare is 13 years old, and is a company that, actually 14 or 15 years old. Is any lawyers on the planet, including Oric, I got a good friend that works in Oric, knows WorkShare because of their Compare product and their product to cleanse metadata out of documents. And perfect example of Start Blue, by the way. So is it the most sexy product ever? No. Is there a market big enough to create a company? Yes. Now, WorkShare had this, and then Barry started SkyDocs, which was on the cloud side, and he said, I see cloud and everything else coming, I'm going to move everything to the cloud and start from scratch. And he started from scratch, and at some point he needed customers. So WorkShare has 18,000 customers worldwide, and a solid revenue stream, but kind of stable. And SkyDocs is a cool company that is going places with the cloud management. And then he said to the investor, he didn't know us before, he said to his investor, we're just going to take Dropbox, make it really enterprise friendly with these cool features that are already established, and outsource it into the shake, and we're going to create the new market leader there. And a month after that they completed the transaction, we knocked at the door and say, hey, are you guys interested in doing social level? And he was saying, well, I just sold this business plan to my investors a month ago, saying that in 2013 we got to build social into WorkShare. Are you interested in talking?
Did you approach them?
Huh?
Did you approach them then?
We did approach them, yeah. Well, okay, those things they actually happen. You have friends in common, and I mentioned James' invaluable personal network. So he had a friend that is a VC, Sean Drummond of Summers Investments, a great guy. He was also in our board of advisors. And he was giving us a lot of advice, including, he said, I have another VC friend that knows a business that could be interested. So the connection actually happened this way. And a lot of those connections actually happen this way. You can do it in many ways, but that's how it went for us. Good.
So I just want to follow on to that question. It really relates to the kind of customer experience that was mentioned earlier. When you're acquired, do you think as the founder and the person with the vision, you can continue, once you're part of a larger organisation, to deliver that same kind of experience that your customers actually who shared the journey with you, fed back the feature requests to you, prioritised them, help you build the product, kind of get left out in the cold, as it were, because they don't get the same, well, sense of ownership, but also kind of passionate startup kind of responsiveness to the fact that
no, it's absolutely true, and that's the reason why why so many acquisitions actually fail, because typically there's a cultural shock, there's a rejection, and either the acquired party says, whatever, I'm out, or the acquirer just tears the acquired to pieces until there's pretty much nothing left. Like, and that's why we actually celebrated when Microsoft bought Yammer, because we were saying it's a matter of time. That's one less competitor.
But you've been acquired now.
Yes. So on our side, it's what Anthony said. Anthony Foy is the CEO of WorkShare. When we spoke, there was myself, James, Anthony, and Barry, and when they were really talking about would you consider that, the first question he asked is, would you be interested in staying? And it was very clear, I am only interested in buying IdeaPlane if you two are interested to stay. So I won't buy, it's actually a condition of the contract. And we talked about how can I empower you to come in and still be motivated at driving the business. So he started by asking that question, which was positive, obviously, for us. And what it means is that in the end, you do lose a lot of your autonomy. So I was CEO/CTO. I use the two because you just do everything in a startup, right? So I was signing contracts and defining the technology, and you're all over the place. And I gave away a lot of that autonomy, and I have now three more restricted scopes, but much deeper and much more resourceful to do it. Now, would you be willing to do it? It completely boils down to the two people. There's no universal answer. For me personally, keep in mind that the way I see it, that's me personally, I work in Accenture from 70,000 people to 200,000, okay? And I work in IdeaPlane from 2 to 20, right? And there's a kind of gap in the middle. So what we didn't manage to do was to ramp up the business here. Anthony has done 4 IPOs so far and has 120 people. So he says, I'm very happy to get you in because what I want to do is the part in the middle. So is there a compelling reason for me to stay now? Yes. Am I going to stay forever? That's a completely different story. Let's see how it works. But I sincerely bought into the idea of what WorkShare wanted to do and in the ability that he left us to come here and talk about this stuff, for example.